welcome back, everybody. We're here with Tom Johnson. You've had a pretty cool career in terms of just all the different things that you've done. Somewhat of a local historian. You know more about the history of our town than probably anybody else, really. So that's pretty cool to talk about. Class of 1952 at the old school before the new current high school, and then a lot of experience, including trying out for the Dodgers at one point. So a lot of stuff to cover here. But you were the class president for all 4 years of high school. What was that experience like for you?
Well, it was like the same guy nominated me every year. And his father was the superintendent of the school. Bill Stirling was in my class. And he was an awfully good man. And we stayed there. He lived in New York State, and he was an attorney on Long Island. Very smart. He was very smart as a high school member of our class. He was highly respected by all of us. But he was a good man. He was full of the devil, just the same as we were. And we had a wonderful class and a wonderful time. It's something when we get together for our class reunions, we usually have all the ones there that are living. They're very attentive. And we had wonderful teachers. I don't know whether you still look at them in that manner or not, but we had people that taught us and taught us well. From Mr. Babson, who was our industrial arts teacher, and he had as much common sense as any man could have, but he was a good instructor in the industrial arts, and he kept us straight, but mainly he kept most of the rest of his students out there in the shop, which was a separate building. We would find out that when he was holding a class and teaching them how to properly saw a piece of lumber or run a machine, a skill saw, or whatever it was they're doing, he was a good teacher. He was my dad's teacher in high school here, and my mother had both Mr. Babson and Mrs. Kimball, who was a wonderful teacher and a wonderful lady. And she lived right next to the old high school. But it was a building that needed help, and some of us guys who were a little playful when it came to things like that, we could shake the whole upstairs window and building by just moving our feet fast, and the windows would shake, and the principal would come out of his office, which was across the hall from that room. But it was something that we didn't know anything better, didn't have anything better, but it was good for us. We got a good education, we had fine teachers, and they kept us in order. We didn't get a lot of hellion stuff done. They slowed us right down from grammar school.
So what were your favorite parts about growing up in Hopkinton, and how's that different from now?
I'm very glad that my parents lived in Kentucky, which is part of the town of Hopkinton. The reason is that I had a chance to experience a lot of things I never would have been able to experience. Hopkinton was a progressive town then, and they did a lot of things in high school. They had some teachers that some of them were old school teachers, but you learned something, and there wasn't any way to avoid it, because you sit down and you learn what he was talking about. So it was a great experience for me growing up, and I think the guys and gals in our class, we still, when we get together, Hopkinton High School that's the tops. That's the place we were very proud of, and you guys are continuing that.
Yeah.
At Hopkinton High School. You have the same type of respect for your education and respect for your teachers. They don't have all that isn't everywhere in our country, unfortunately. But we're fortunate to have that type of feeling that Hopkins High School has something special. And my mother graduated from Hopkins High School. My dad didn't. He left the school when he was a junior because he and my mother were married. And so, but he was smarter than a lot of people that were a lot of guys coming out of that school, and ladies as well, that had a lot to learn when they got out into society.
Do you feel like you were well prepared for the world here?
Oh, I don't know if the world was prepared for me. I had so much respect for my teacher. Mr. Milne was the principal, and he also was my history teacher. And when I was discussing, and he was also our advisor, well, when we got talking about what we want to do after when we graduate, we're going to do something. And he steered us in a good direction. Some of us went on to college, which I did. Some of us didn't go, but kept our hands in the jobs we were already on. Like my best friend was here yesterday, I guess it was, and he was a farmer. When growing up, he would be receiving ownership in the cattle because his uncle owned the farm at the time, and we were always good friends. And he always had a great business head for his farm. He ran it very successfully. He had cows that were some of the best producers in New Hampshire, and it's quite an accomplishment. They've got to do the proper breeding to get a cow that's going to produce enough milk to make it worthwhile for the farmer.
Yeah. Do you remember when the old high school was moved and it moved, so now there was the new high school that was built?
I sure don't remember. Oh, because we would be up there looking it over. I hold on to get memories from it. And as they started building the new one, we'd be up there. And these kids coming along here are going to have a nice place. And basically, in its overall building construction, a lot of it is the same as today because it's part of the old Hopkinton High School. We were proud of our school and proud of every accomplishment we had in that school, and the credit of the school and its system and its teachers. We had some wonderful teachers. They weren't any more exceptional than probably any other school at the time, but to us they were very special. And Mr. Milne, who became the principal, but he was basically a history teacher. And I don't know whether he was still in the high school when you attended.
No.
He was gone. No, he would be, that's right.
So you ended up going to UNH to study history. How'd you make that decision?
Well, because Mr. Milne was influential because I was a good student in history. I'm not sure I was a good student in every part of the education, but he was a very fine history teacher. He made it interesting, and I tried to copy that when I started teaching high school. I taught high school in Warner, the Simon Tree High School, and coached Swartz there, and and we had some wonderful kids that are still come to see me and write to me from there were 3 or 4 girls from one class that wrote me a letter, a group letter from the Far East. And I want to say some from China and India, that area, and other areas, and get out in the islands too. And I still see these, I call them kids, but they were kids to me when they were in school. But they were very smart kids. They were just the type of person you'd want in your history class. Because they're curious about things that had to do with the history of our country and our state. So we had a good working arrangement. And we have alumni association.
Yep.
And we still we seem to hold to old ideas and things. We never lost our love for our school. Hopkinton High School was very dear to us
Feel better today?
as students, and still is. And Mr. Milne, who lived a good long life, he did pass, and his wife was also an English teacher, and she taught French too. It was a good small town education, which was to me as good as education in any city. I thought our teachers were regular people, supportive to us.
At UNH in college, you did a lot of different things. You said you traveled the country. You had the school record in hammer throw at the time.
I did. I also held the shot put record for a while. That wasn't my favorite event, but the hammer throw was, and both in spring track and winter track. We at UNH did not have an indoor facility. That's the time that every other decent productive college had facilities, much more than we had at UNH, but that's what we had was what we had. We just went with them, and what we did have was a very fine coach. And I was in track and field, and we never had track and field at Hopkinton High School. We didn't even know what.
Do you know when that first started here at Hopkinton?
It was then after I graduated.
It's fine if you don't know.
I don't think I can tell you when track started, but it was quite late in the history of the high school, because we never had track. My class was 52, and we never had much to do with track and field. And I went to college, and I was doing layups in my first week in college for physical education, and I used to dunk the ball, so I had a spring in my leg. And this old gray-haired fella let a bell out of him, and he said, "I want to see you in my office." I said, "These are my first week in college, and I'm gonna be put out." And I went down to his office there at the university, and with this white-haired gentleman, and he was one of the best people I ever met in my life. And he was so good to me. And my wife and I lived in Durham for a year or two in their housing for the last of my being there. But Paul Sweet was a man that you're lucky to meet in your life. When your younger life or your older life, he was always there for me. And he and his wife, when my wife and I moved down there and lived in some apartment, he'd have us over for dinner in the evenings, and that his name was Paul Sweet, and the oval, the indoor track at UNH, is named for him.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever participated in track events or not in high school, but
No, I played baseball.
yeah, me too.
So baseball, good segue here. You also tried out for the Dodgers. I think that's pretty cool. So what happened with that?
Well, I had a problem trying out for them because I was doing too much stuff at that time, and I had to be in. It was on a Saturday that I went to Florida, and it was I'm trying to think of his name. He was one of the scouts for the Dodgers. I can't remember it now. It's a long time ago. But he said he talked to me a lot, and I had my wife and I had been married, and I decided I wasn't going to do too much different than I was already doing, out of respect for my family, because her sister came along not too long after that. She lives right next door to me. Yeah, but she came along, and we were pretty much limited to taking care of our family, and we did, and they turned out pretty damn good. Maybe not all of them. No, we were lucky to have a good family, and have had a lot of great family time.
What's your favorite part about being a parent?
I guess it's the relationship between yourself and the kids, and how happy is that relationship? I mean, is it back and forth, and are you just a parent and they're just a child, and we're pretty much on equal basis in all ways? They boss me around most of the time, and I just take it the best I can.
Yeah.
No, I'm lucky to have good children, and my mother and father were very supportive of my efforts, and they lived right through the woods there, right across the railroad track. There's a house, and that's where I grew up. So I never moved too far. I got too far from the area. But keep asking questions, I might find an answer.
Well, coaching wise was something I wanted to talk about. Right now, the year has kind of shifted where it used to be very common that you would have one coach who would coach all the different varsity sports, and that's what you did. Now things have changed, and it's very common for a varsity coach to come in for a couple of years and only coach one sport and then leave, instead of staying for 25 years, 30 years and coaching all the different sports. So what was it like, your coaching experience?
Well, my coaching experience wasn't in my town. It was to one degree. I coached basketball outside of a school relationship, but I coached kids that were freshmen and sophomore type athletes, and we were sponsored by the community center at that time. And my wife had been active and was active in the community center. She was one of the leaders of the programs that they produced. And I enjoyed that very much. And we had some outstanding basketball teams, girls and boys. And we'd go up against anybody.
Yeah.
And then we won a lot of tournaments in and around the state, and the kids still every once in a while there'll be a knock down the hallway, and it'll be one of the basketball guys that said, I want to see, Scotty Raymond, and comes to mind. He was a good basketball player, and he was a good kid. And all the kids were good kids. Hopkinton had a record of producing some damn good kids. Good parents. Parents are supportive of their children, whether it be for football or baseball or basketball. Did you play sport?
Yeah, I played baseball.
You did. Were you any good?
Yeah,
Huh?
I was a pretty good leader, I'll say that. I got a lot better as time went on. I was a pretty good defensive player towards the end of my career. Offense was a little bit more of a struggle for me. Hitting a baseball is like the hardest thing to do in all sports, I think. So.
Baseball is the sport that I played most of my adult life. I think I played until sometime in the 60s, maybe. That was town team baseball, so-called. And it was...
And Sunset League.
Huh?
Sunset League.
Yeah, I played in Concord in the Sunset League and managed a team for a number of years in Concord. And had some real fine players that we were usually in the playoffs. We were in the higher level. A good bunch of kids. And they became adults all of a sudden. I became old all of a sudden. We had a lot of fun.
So what are some of your favorite experiences that you took away from coaching and teaching and all this stuff?
Well, I guess I must say that when I had, at the UNH, there was this white-haired gentleman that my first week at the university, and I think I already told you that, I was showing off that I could, dunk the basketball, and I was doing that, and he let a bill out of him, and he said, I want to see you in my office. And it was my first few days at UNH. I said, well, I'm going to be leaving here long before I wanted to. But I went down to his office, and he said, you've got pretty good spring in those legs, haven't you? Well, I really didn't know much about the spring. I knew I could jump in basketball pretty well. And we went on to, he was not just only my coach, he was my friend. And he used to invite us, he and his wife would invite we lived down at UNH for a year or two in their married housing. But we had fun, and we got to play sports that I enjoyed, and I did a lot of stuff at UNH that I'd never done in high school. We used to have in the old high school, I don't know if you've seen pictures of the old Hopkinton High School.
Yeah, down at the town library.
All right, well, down in the basement of that building where the janitor was the boss, he kept these iron balls down there right in front of the furnace, and we would go down there, the boys, and we'd hold them up, see how long we could hold them at arm's length, because they weighed like 16 pounds, and that's all we knew about them. I got to college, the first thing I had was one of those iron balls. And Paul Sweet said, you're going to put that out there farther than anybody has in college. Well, I said, well, I don't know about that, but he did it. He's the one that got me interested in the hammer throw and the javelin, the discus, and events that take me all over the damn country at different games that were at different colleges.
Yeah. So what are some of your life lessons that you want the younger listeners to know about?
Well, I think to listen to your coaches. Listen to what they really are saying to you when they're coaching you. You can learn a lot from a old dumb coach like I was. You can learn a lot from the experience of coaching and learn a lot more from the kids you're coaching, because they are kids in a lot of cases. They're high school age kids. And I used to have a town team too. I coached a bunch of men here in Hopkinton. We used the school for the gym, and we had a league around Concord area, and had a lot of fun. And the guys that I had on the team were Hopkinton High School
Yeah.
boys when they were in high school. We did that for quite a lot of years. It was interesting, and they had Hopkinton has had a record in basketball that's pretty damn good. They certainly excelled in a lot of areas of the sports of basketball and soccer and track to an extent, some track events when boys would get out the depths and get out there and find out what it's like to shot put or throw the javelin or the discus. There's other college events that they're going to be involved in. If they had some, I had one boy especially that did very well at the university in field events, and I had the privilege of coaching him in some of those events. But anyway, life's a lot of fun, but it also can create a lot of work. So you gotta push yourself to do it, and sometimes your family suffers because things when you're coaching, you're off different towns, different school districts, different places that take you away from your family, and that's the only bad feature that we have in coaching. And if our wives and attuned to that, which my wife was, she was a good athlete in high school, and she understood a lot more about it than people realized. That it was a sacrifice sometimes for people to coach, as it took them away from their teaching, and that's sometimes hard for us to do if we enjoy teaching and feel we're accomplishing something for the kid.
Do you have anything else you want to add?
I don't have anything unless you hit on a subject that you might.
That's all from me. That's all my questions.
Huh?
That's all my questions.
That all your questions?
Yeah.
Then you've got to go home and start figuring out some new questions. Never let your questioning stop. The most important is you can be inquisitive about things in life that you want to know more about. The only way you learn is to ask questions about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's
You know,
good,
you
good
wanna-
talking to you.
You want to shake that thing. 'Cause, you know, I always had a good hand grip. I don't know if I still have it on. What do you think?
Oh yeah.
You're a good fella.